Hey everyone, and welcome to Brad the DM. Strixhaven, a Curriculum of Chaos, Session 7. The Otyugh exam, and a Level 3, baby. Honestly, honestly, I just went with this because, I didn't have much to go with, and I wanted to at least say something for the exam, and also for hitting Level 3, which is kind of a big deal in D&D. Basically, for a number of classes, most of them, third level is when you get to choose your own subclass. So it's kind of a big deal. And like I think I said in the last episode, I was really looking forward to this. So yeah, just a quick introduction here, and then we'll go through the campaign. Basically, it's just an exam, another combat encounter, and a new character. So yeah. The introduction. Alright, this is the third and final exam of year 1, so I want to say that this is near the end of the first semester. So like school starts in August, the first semester ends in roughly December. Though honestly after this there isn't much left of the year besides a few book missions. My pacing for this year is a bit off, but, that's okay. I have the players to fill in any interesting gaps. They might have ideas that I can potentially run with. This series is basically just covering, here's the story missions, here's a couple of missions that I came up with that work within the confines of the story, and that's it. Just to make sure that this works for my team, which is, I would say, decently balanced. Also, bit spoilers for the future, but I do have another idea from another book that I could use for either spring break or like early summer vacation. Basically, oh hey, you go to you get a trip to an island type place, but oh no, trouble shows up there. It's totally unrelated, so it's totally skippable. I'm honestly still debating on whether or not I want to include that in this series. We'll see what happens with that. We need to focus on the here and now. So let's talk about, the end of the first semester with the final exam. In year 2, I do plan on having, a few holiday episodes, an actual Halloween episode, a Thanksgiving/Christmas episode, which I'm basically dubbing that holiday the Festival of Lights, which I can explain if/when I get to that point. Just because the team will have some more levels under their belt, making a bit less hesitant to push them. Even though, honestly, all these are like one-shots, so it's not that big a deal to include another mission or two. I just wanted to get through the book stuff for this first part and go from there. Moving on to the setup. The setup for this mission. The scene opens up on the party in the library. Snow falls lightly outside the windows of the biblioplex. The party were together for one last study session of the semester. The subject, Otyughs, which I will just put below just so you guys know how to spell it properly. Underground dwelling eaters of garbage and carrion. Definitely monsters. Given what we know of Otyughs and their diet, what would you expect to find near them? Sarah paced back and forth in front of the assembled group of students. She looked over the faces in the crowd. She saw some eager to answer, some nervous thinkers, and then Darb, who seemed a bit distracted. Darb, your thoughts? Sarah asked. Darb was lost in thought when he was hit in the head with a paper ball. Yeah. I just made that up on the fly. Darb, where would you expect to find Otyugh? Sarah said, sounding annoyed. He realized the 5 other students who were focused on him. Darb thought for a few seconds. Maybe like near a hunting lodge or a butcher shop, maybe? No. Sarah frowned. Depending on the size, potentially. But you want a large amount of food consistently. Unless you want to be put on the menu. Darb nodded, but couldn't come up with anything better. Sarah pointed at someone else in the group. Possibly working under a large city with a good landfill for food, or or with someone, or with some evil group of pillagers, you know, to keep it caged up and released at chow time. That prompted a laugh from a few of the other students, but also some did look a bit queasy after they thought about it for a few seconds, like, oh, ugh. Sarah shook her head. That is better. I think Professor Veralda expects a bit more detail. I don't know. I haven't really established what kind of Professor Veralda is, but, you know, she could be that, oh, you gotta be, like, very specific and yada yada. Sarah concluded her part of the review and passed things off to Burgle. You know, she took a seat at the table with Darb. Burgle began his game of Jeopardy as Sarah talked to Darb. Alright, Darb, what's going on? You're distracted, clearly, Sarah said. Darb looked down at his notepad. Sorry, you know, I've just been thinking about next semester stuff. You know, they're talking about, specializations, and it's got me a bit worried, Darb explained. Sarah didn't have that issue, and Burgle hadn't mentioned any issues with his own classes. Sarah nodded sympathetically, though, and said, Alright, I see, so, what seems to be the problem, then? Darb took her hand, and they walked away from the group to an empty table to talk. You know, Darb took a couple of deep breaths, you know, just scratched the back of his head. You know, the program I want to look into, it deals with, like, magic stuff. You know, I don't know anything about it, but, you know, maybe you or Javenish could come help me out with that. You know, and he smiled awkwardly, like, please? Sarah smirked. Darb blushed embarrassed and stood up, heading toward the door. Sarah put her hand up. Hey. Darb, it's fine. I get it. I know how hard it can be to properly use magic. Sarah remembered how many times her firebolt had gone awry, or when she'd frozen her foot with ice knife. You know, we'll help you out. We all will. We're a team. But first, we have to get past the Otyugh exam. Darb wiped at his eyes. You know, they were a bit red and irritated. Oh, man. You know, sorry. Allergies. He mumbled. Sarah shook her head at that. Yeah, they seem to come up at the worst times, don't they? Now she patted his shoulder and joined in the study game with the group once more. Basically, you know, that last bit, I've got at the end of this note session, and I rewrote it for this. You know, basically, oh, hey, like, you know, the macho, manly thing of, oh, I can't be seen crying and stuff, and, oh, hey, giving an excuse. So, yeah. We will move on to the Otyugh study session results. This was a DC 13 ability check. Advantage on this check because of group study. Darb, first up, unfortunately failed and does not get a reroll. Burgle passed with a 16, so he will get a reroll for the exam. And Sarah, unfortunately, failed and will not get a reroll for the exam. Really quick, going over the exam results. Well, you know, part 1 of the Otyugh exam. Physical signs of Otyugh presence. DC 13 intelligence investigation. Burgle gave bardic inspiration to Sarah and Darb. He knew Darb had a lot on his mind, and Sarah still had some personal issues with not having aced the last exam. Darb unfortunately rolled a 2, so he did not pass here. Sarah rolled a 15, which means she did pass here. And Burgle, thanks to his reroll, passed with a 15. Moving on to part 2 of the exam. Essays on intelligent creatures who would use Otyughs as guards. Darb passed with a 16. Sarah unfortunately failed with a 5. And she didn't have a reroll. And Burgle unfortunately also failed with a 7. So, for Darb, so the final exam results. Fail pass for Darb. Pass fail for Sarah. And Burgle was also a pass fail. Basically, you know, you at least pass part of the exam, but you're not getting the full benefit of the student die. Honestly, I keep forgetting to take them into account, so I'm strongly considering just cutting out the exams at this point. You know, I might have like little study things just for like, oh hey, just to fill content for my friends if I do this. Well, when I do this, I just gotta figure it out. And then moving on to, you know, post-exam stuff. Honestly, just a bit of more story. I know I'm gonna get to combat and stuff eventually, but yeah. The students had one more class session to, you know, to review the exams. Professor Veralda asked the party to meet with her. Nothing serious, mind you, just a casual debrief of the semester. The party met with the professor in her office. First of all, I would like to give you my thanks for all of your hard work. I know it hasn't been easy balancing everything, but I think you've handled things well, and gone above and beyond in several cases. Darb and Burgle blushed and muttered their thanks. Sarah smiled lightly, but kept her face calm. Right. Things have been quiet as of late, so I believe you've more than earned time off from the work. Classes resume again in 1 month. We'll reconvene once the semester begins. I believe you all are registered for my spring class. Students agreed and thanked the professor for her time. The meeting adjourned. The students left the office. Sarah and Darb talked to Burgle about Darb's plans for the next semester and how he could help. And then basically, just cut to a training montage, you know, for Darb and his studies, which I think I can quickly cover. Yeah, I can cover that. Alright, so, you know, first scene we have Urs McTakio on a blackboard explaining magic theory for Darb. You know, basically the three main pieces, the verbal, the somatic, and the material. You know, the right words, the gestures, you know, and of course material components. Which I'm not going to sweat very much myself in the campaign, besides, like, stuff that requires expensive gems and such. Like, at least for Revivify. For Dimension Door and other stuff, I don't think so. We'll see what happens. But, yeah. You know, and then Darb looking over, you know, the spell list for, the Eldritch Knight class. Because that's the program that he's going into. You know, Darb talking to Sarah and pointing out, you know, what he's chosen. You know, Darb bonding with his sword and shield. Weapon Bond is one of the Eldritch Knight abilities. They can summon 2 bound weapons to themselves, you know, after a 1-hour ritual, you know, as a bonus action in combat. So let's say someone knocked your sword out of your hand, or you left your sword and shield back, you know, in your dorm or something. Just concentrate. Poof. There it is. At least that's how I'm visualizing it. Sarah and Javenish setting up test dummies for attacks. Two of the spells he chose were Lightning Lure and Ice Knife. And then Darb working defensive drills. Because one of the spells he could also pick up was Shield. Which is basically a reaction that gives you +5 to AC and also blocks the spell Magic Missile. You know, use it as a reaction. Darb's, Darb's sword knocked out of his hand and he summons it back or summons Shield before someone can attack him. Also using Shield, the spell, which I just explained, you know, can negate damage from Magic Missile, adds 5 AC, etc., etc. Darb practices a few times, you know, getting hit with Sarah's Magic Missile attack, then finally he gets it. You know, the orbs just hitting a blue force field and dissipating. Sarah looked genuinely surprised at that. Huh, I never knew such a spell existed, she said. You know, Darb just smirked at that. You know, I guess it's like fighting. You know, every move has a counter. There is no unstoppable move. Sarah blushed at that. Yes, clearly, someone would have come up with a way to deflect Magic Missile. I just hadn't looked into it yet. It's not like we're facing master level enemies. You know, Darb held up a finger. Not yet, we're not. Sarah rolled her eyes and stormed off. Darb chuckling to himself. And Burgle looked at him. You're gonna pay for that later. You realize that, right? You know, Darb laughed for a few more seconds and then it processed and it kind of trailed off. Just, nuts. Moving on to the next parts. You know, after every nice little montage, you know, there's a nice little party scene. You know, everybody gets together, has fun, you know, etc., etc. So, after a rough few weeks of work and training, the group felt that Darb was ready for the Eldritch Knight exhibition. You know, basically the test. You know, Darb wanted to have a small party to celebrate their hard work in the first semester, and to thank everyone for their help in training him. You know, they met up at the Bow's End Tavern, where an end of semester party was already underway. You know, they had a nice evening of fun without issue. You know, it was pretty nice for everyone involved. if you want to add some stuff here, you can have some fun and games, more Wizard Gizzard, darts, 10-pin bowling or whatever, etc. I'm just making a quick bit because I don't want to weigh this episode down with too much stuff. Because honestly, this is for the most part a filler episode at this point, I would say, and that's perfectly fine. That was also a DM note if I didn't denote that. Just have fun and games and whatever. Final exam. Basically, it's one thing to practice this stuff with your friends. It's another thing to put what you've learned into practice. With the final week of vacation upon them, and the Eldritch Knight exhibition in a couple days, Urzmiktok called a meeting. Darb, I know you've been working hard training for the exhibition. Of course, I know how practice is well and good, but putting all of that work into play is important as well. So I've done some work on a pair of test dummies. They should give a pretty good challenge and let you try out your new skills. Sarah, Burgle, you may want to back him up just in case. Darb grinned, feeling excited. Hey, getting to play around with magic for once, it's pretty cool and interesting, and I loved it. Like, Darb is my insert character, and yeah, it's great. Alright, man, yeah, let's do this. Darb bounced with excitement. Sarah smirked and just nodded. Burgle looked a bit nervous, but he was ready. The party went to the battle training grounds. There were some other students, doing some light sparring. They gave a wave to the party, as they walked to an open ring. Urzmiktok went to the equipment locker and found 2 suits of animated armor. I believe that's in the monster manual. I'll try and put a reference for where you can find animated armor for those who want to use it, because that was one of the random encounters at the beginning of year 1. So at this point, I've used 3 of the 4 that they give you that you can just play around with for random stuff. He brought them over and set them up. Then he used the incantation to activate them. Or button or whatever. Like, basically, these are just normal suits of armor that can be activated to be turned into animated armor with an incantation or a button or whatever. The party stepped into the circle getting prepared for the battle when another person entered the circle. Darb looked at her curiously. Crap. Her name is Chima. Now I don't have to spell it. And I will talk about the character at the end of the session. The brunette goblin nodded. Hey, mind if I join this dance, she asked. Darb looked at Burgle and Sarah. She's pretty excellent at hand-to-hand combat, and it'd be nice to have backup on the front line. Sarah looked Chima over. Chima smirked. Hey, why don't we just call this, a nice little tryout? If you like what I bring to the table, I join up. You don't, I just walk away. Trying to come up with a good goblin-y voice. Female goblin-y voice, also to be clear. Not for that reason, just trying to balance the party. 2 dudes, 2 ladies, it works out. Whatever. Sarah nodded, holding out a hand to shake. Sounds good to me. I just hope you don't break a nail punching the armor. Chima chuckled. Hey, just don't barbecue us with the fireball, and I think I'll be fine. Sarah smirked at that. I'll give you extra credit for the wit. Chima smiled and began to do some stretches. It warms the muscles, so you don't hurt yourself in the fight, she explained. Darb awkwardly did his own stretches with his sword and shield. Hey Darb, I'll teach you some good stretches later, Chima said, walking past him toward the center of the ring. Urzmiktok stopped Sarah and Burgle. Why don't you 2 hang back and leave the fight to Darb and Chima? Obviously, if things take a turn, we can step in, but this is about testing Darb and Chima's skills. Sarah nodded. Burgle frowned, but nodded as well. Bardic Inspiration? Burgle asked. Urzmiktok smiled and nodded. Fine, I'll allow it. So for reference, Darb and Chima have Bardic Inspiration, which I honestly think I forgot to make reference to later in the fight. Urzmiktok gave a thumbs up before activating the animated armor. He backed out as the suits came to life. Also around the circle, a line of runes lit up with a light pink glow. Don't worry, these are to stop any errant magic from leaving the circle, or any ranged attacks for that matter. That may go wide, Urzmiktok explained, standing next to Sarah and Burgle. Sarah crouched to take a better look at the runes, nodding in appreciation. Also, if anyone gets thrown, it will protect them and cushion the blow, like a net. Armor activate. 2 student opponents. Urzmiktok called out. The armor seemed to have gems in their eyes that lit up, a light green as they scanned Darb and Chima. On your guard, students. 2 opponents. Strategy. 1-on-1 combat. The 2 said in unison, then raising their fists ready for battle. So, combat. Turn 1. Sarah, very basic, holding action. Chima is going to use dart attack, then use her movement to rush in, followed up by flurry of blows. She missed with the dart, and she missed with the flurry of blows, unfortunately. Not a great start. I have bad luck with martials, apparently. Chima smirked at Darb. Check this out, she said. I already forgot the voice. Crap. She said, a dart appearing in her hand. She grinned, throwing it toward the armor on the right. Raising an arm, the dart was stuck into the armor. It didn't even react. Shit, Chima muttered. Before rushing forward in a crouch, she jumped into a flying kick, but misjudged the distance and landed sliding in the sand next to the suit of armor. She swept the leg, but the armor deftly raised it before stomping it back into the sand. That could have gone better, she muttered to herself. Armor B is going to use Slam Attack twice. It missed and it hit for 5 damage total this turn. Chima was on her guard as the armor regarded her. Initiating offensive response, the armor drew back its fist and threw a punch at Chima. She easily dodged the punch. Then the second caught her on the jaw. Burgle winced at the shot, but Chima gave a thumbs up. Hey, I'm good, she said. Burgle's next, again holding action, because, hey, we're doing that. Burgle looked on with concern from the sidelines after Chima was struck, Sarah putting a hand on his shoulder. It's training. She'll be fine. Armor A went for Slam Attack ×2. Hit Darb for 5 damage, and then crit missed, allowing Darb to land his own attack. So the other suit of armor, looked at Darb and rushed forward, throwing quick punches. Darb was smashed on the jaw and turned with the punch, though he was able to land a solid slice on the armor's back. Darb faced off with the armor once more. The armor looked at him. Excellent response, student. And then Darb's turn. He used Thunder Wave, Action Surge, and then Lightning Lure. So he crit. Thunder Wave is a Constitution saving throw for the enemy. Basically, if they pass it, if they fail it, they take so much damage. I forgot how much it is. And if they succeed, they only take half damage and are not pushed 10 feet. But yeah, he crit failed on the saving throw, so he's going to take double damage and be pushed 10 feet, taking a total of 16 damage. And then the Action Surge, allowing Darb to use Lightning Lure. Unfortunately, he did pass the saving throw, so there was no damage or movement for that. Darb concentrated on his magic, channeling the energy through his sword. He swung the sword, spinning in a circle, unleashing an expanding sphere of energy that pressed outward, forcing the armor back, sliding through the sand. Darb was ecstatic at this. He quickly lashed out with Lightning Lure. Crackling energy flew from his sword, wrapping around the forearm of the armor. Get over here! Darb yelled. Yes, the Scorpion reference. Darb tried to draw it back, but the line snapped easily. Still, the attack was impressive, prompting applause from Burgle and Urzmiktok. Sarah smiled. Well done, she quietly whispered to herself. Yeah. So, back to the top. Turn 2. Sarah, still holding action. Chima is going to use Breath of the Dragon, hitting both sets of armor, and Flurry of Blows against Armor B. Alright, for the breath attack, Armor B failed, Armor A passed, taking 7 damage dealt to Armor B, and then 3 or 4 damage to Armor A. And then a hit and a crit fail for the flurry of blows. So, armor B? Yeah, armor B takes 6 damage, and then Chima takes 5 damage. So, armor B took 13 damage, armor A took 4 damage, and Chima took 5 damage. Again, because crit fail. I'm using crit fails as, oh hey, the bad guy gets to lash out in response, at least for melee attacks. For ranged attacks, I gotta figure something out. It might, it might be, you mess something up or whatever. I don't know. We'll see what happens if we get to that. Alright, Chima looked at the 2 suits of armor and grinned. You like lightning, huh? Watch this. Chima made strange hand gestures before expelling a breath that crackled with electricity. Dar brought his shield up to protect himself. The suits of armor crackled with residual electricity for a few seconds as Chima rushed forward. She threw a pair of punches at her armored opponent, though she felt the electricity loop back in her arm, causing her harm. Her knuckles were red as if they'd been burnt. She grimaced and took her guarded position once more. Armor B is going to lash out with slam attack twice. Hits both times, dealing Chima 10 damage. She is still standing. Chima had her guard up, ready for the armor's attack. She was kicked hard and then was hit with a heavy right hand to the jaw. She looked unsteady on her feet now. Sarah and Burgle looked to one another and nodded. They stepped forward into the ring. McTock stood outside, knowing he wouldn't be much help in the fighting. Basically, these things are designed to just knock you out and then, render assistance. They've got a defibrillator or whatever inside. Or something I picked up from not another D&D podcast, they'll drop a good berry or 2 into your mouth. So, oh hey, you regain 1 HP and then you stand back up. Everything's good. And they make sure that you're good and all that stuff. It's complicated. Just trust me. Right. So, going back to Sarah's turn, because she's acting now, she uses Tasha's Mind Whip. This is a spell that she just picked up. It's an intelligence saving throw. The bad guy takes 3d6 damage, on a fail, and forces the victim to only take 1 action, on a success, or half damage on a fail. And basically, one of those actions, is you can move, you can act, or you can have a bonus action or reaction. I forget which one it was. Yeah, one of those 3, and that's it. Because your mind is just messed up. I don't know why I'm yawning all the time. I don't know what it is. So yeah, it failed, and it took a total of 14 damage. Sarah pointed at the armor closest to Chima, and uttering a magical phrase, purple energy flew from her hand. The energy swirled around its head, causing it to stiffen. Chima, move away from it, trust me. Sarah shouted. Chima nodded. Moving on to Burgle. Burgle rushed in for a cure wounds on Chima, healing her for 14 points. Burgle rushes in and putting his hands on Chima, heals her. She stands up straight, smiling. Hey, thanks, Burgle, she said, smiling, hands up, looking ready to fight. Moving on to Armor A. Slam attack against Darb twice. Hitting Darb both times for a total of 10 damage. Burgle used Cutting Words on the first attack, only reducing it down to 17, which unfortunately still is above Darb's AC. Darb was too focused on Chima to realize that the armor was coming after him, cracking him across the jaw, then hitting him with an uppercut to the stomach, making him grunt. Burgle saw the armor throwing its punches and trying to reduce the attack, roll enough to save Darb from harm. He wasn't successful. It's the Bard school of... It's a Bard thing, using your Bardic inspiration for Cutting Words, which basically takes, attacks down. Just so we know what happened. Okay, now I might need ruling and thoughts on this one. Darb uses Ice Knife. He missed, exploding, prompting a dex save. The armor passed, so I'm saying it took 0 damage. That's how I read the description of the thing. You miss the attack, and then, it explodes, and they still make a dex save, and if they pass, they aren't damaged at all. If they fail, then they do take some I think it's 5 damage. I forget how much damage, but yeah. So Darb remembered his other relevant spell, Ice Knife. Concentrating, he formed an icing throwing knife in his hand. I've got one more trick up my sleeve. Hope you don't freeze up, he said, throwing the knife. But his aim was off, so the knife flew past before exploding, throwing icy chunks all over the field. Everyone was just frozen for a few seconds before Sarah said, you know, that might have been good if you actually hit. The others laughed at that. Darb blushed. Yeah, Darb is me. Again. Alright, I'm just going to take turn 3 really quick, just so we can get done with this. Sarah cast Magic Missile at 2nd level, throwing 4 damage. Dealing 7 damage to both suits of armor, causing them to shut down and stop moving. Alright, I'll wrap this up, Sarah said with a sigh. She cast Magic Missile, launching 2 orbs at both of the suits of armor. Sarah turned smugly to Darb. And that is how it's done, Darb. Darb laughed, then took a knee, because, you know, he'd taken a few shots to the head, and that uppercut to the stomach really hurt. So the combat is now over. And let's move on to, I think it's the final seed of the episode. Yeah, it's the final seed. Alright, Chima and Burgle walked over to Darb, who had taken a seat in the sand to catch his breath. Sarah stood over him, shaking her head. Urzmiktok taking notes as Darb caught his breath. Oh man, that magic stuff is exhausting, Darb said, taking deep breaths. It did look cool though, right? No, Burgle assured him that it did indeed look cool, and Chima, you know, offered her support as well. Chima looked nervous, standing slightly off to the side on her own. What did you guys think? Chima asked, brushing herself off. She was looking down, clearly trying to avoid eye contact. You know, social awkwardness and such. You know, Darb looked to Sarah and Burgle. Sarah nodded. Burgle was practically bursting with his desire to say yes, but for some reason they wanted Darb to weigh in, though he felt the choice was clear. He stood up and walked over to Chima, putting a hand on her shoulder. Hey, you know, it was a tough fight. Honestly, I think you bit off a bit more than you could chew out there. You know, Chima nodded. yeah, sorry about that. You know, hey, I had fun today, and, you know, no hard feelings, and I'll just get my darts, and, you know, she wiped at her eyes and moved toward the suit of armor to get her dart back. Darb sighed. Chima, you made the team. You're one of us now. Chima stopped in her tracks. She had her back to the group, you know, her shoulders lifted, then fell. You know, she took a big sniff and, you know, turned around, you know, with those big, just sad, watery eyes. Do you mean it? She asked, eyes big and watery now. You know, Darb approached her, you know, just smiling from ear to ear. Do I mean it? Dude, you got dragon breath and lightning punches. That's rad as hell, Darb said loudly. Chima chuckled at that, you know, hands on her knees, bent over, you know, just laughing, unable to breathe. And, you know, that's the thing that made him say yes. And obviously Darb values her as a person and her fighting prowess, but those are cool as hell, dude. Like, if my buddy could do that, dude, freaking, it'd be awesome. If I could do that, that would be awesome, but whatever. Sarah walked over casually. You know, those are unique qualities, and you handled yourself very well. But you need to know it's going to be a tough road ahead. Chima nodded solemnly. You know, fuck. Right. Professor Veralda talked to me before the semester ended, so I have an idea. I just wasn't sure how to approach you. You know, I'm a bit shy, to be honest. Jarvis looked at Sarah and Burgle. Did you guys know? You know, they shook their heads. You know, no one tells us anything. And then Urzmiktok spoke up. Right. Chima, Professor Veralda. Right! She did mention to me she had another student in mind to assist us. I had honestly just forgotten. My apologies, no issues there, though, right? Darb and Sarah just stared at him blankly. Sarah just shaking her head casually. Darb's face turning a bit more red, and there was definitely starting to be steam coming out of his ears. Sarah shaking. Darb looking furious. Burgle looked at Erzmachtok. Hey, I'd run fast. Burgle said to Erzmachtok before moving away from him. Now, Darb. We've talked about the temper. You really need to... Oh, shit! Erzmachtok began before he turned, sprinting away. Darb in hot pursuit. Burgle walked over to Chima. Hey, don't worry about Darb. He's not usually like this. He's just, passionate sometimes. It's an orc thing, I guess. It's really interesting if you'd like to learn about it. Chima chuckled. Hey, maybe I could teach him some of my meditative practices. The camera pulls up and away from the trading field, Sarah returning the suits to the return bin for repairs. She casually hands Chima her missing dart, two smiling at one another. Burgle just talking away about orcs and the Mark of Grumsh, basically. Orcs and half-orcs have the Mark of Grumsh, one of their gods, I believe, that makes them feel emotions strongly. So, anger, depression, joy, bloodlust, etc. Yeah. Burgle's curious and he learned it, and I learned it, and I'm sharing it with you. So in case you run into orcs and you wonder why they are the way that they are, poof. That's it. Darb, comically chasing after Erzmachtok, yelling about remembering important information and sharing said information. The sun lowering on the horizon, and our party of heroes full of hope and curiosity for the semester to come. And then I will get into the final thoughts. So, final thoughts. The major and minor system that I talked about, you get one additional level in a second class. Something that I considered. But if we do have the 4 characters like we do now, I might just skip that and give everyone an extra feat at the end of the year, if they want. At level 4 and other levels, you can either increase your ability scores. You have 2 points to use, basically, to increase ability scores. Or you can take on a feat. Here they can take on an extra feat at the end of the year. Need to look them over and see if anything seems appropriate for my characters once I do reach the end of the year. And then the other big thing, I'm just introducing another character. In the last game, I was part of, we brought in a few other people as the game went along. Unfortunately, they didn't last, but, you should be prepared for someone to want to bring on a friend, especially if they're having fun. So in this game, the idea of someone, watching the party and wanting in, or maybe a transfer student, another idea I'd considered, if I brought someone in, like for the start of year 2, I would address the exams, as a new player. It hasn't come up yet, but I do know passing certain exams does give advantage in certain battles to come. I think, actually, in the next session. Which, again, I didn't take into account there, and I'm kind of annoyed and kicking myself for that. So, again, that's just another reason to potentially cut out the exams. Speaking of exams, I'm considering making them quick, just 5-minute lectures for the players on the monster and addressing the exam questions. Maybe I do Jeopardy for my players. You play as a team, get so many things right, and you move on to the next part of the exam. Etc., etc. Unfortunately, that would mean more work for myself, so I might just cut exams entirely. I don't know. We'll see what we're feeling. Yeah, I can just hold like a 5-minute lecture on each creature with information that I get from the book, D&D Beyond, etc. And then, honestly, let's just talk about... I've got 2 more sections to do. Chima specific information. I'm not sure where or when I'll have the time to really profile Chima, so I'm just going to throw what notes I do have here for future Brad, and also for you guys to know. Like everyone else in the party, she's looking for a group to belong to and fit in. Yeah, like the Straw Hat Pirates of One Piece or the Ninjas of Naruto. She was raised in a swamp with a small tribe of goblins. They aren't basic or primitive, exactly, to be clear. They're just on the outer edges of society, like my small town. She, like many of her people, learned martial arts from the master of her tribe. he had learned a long time ago from a stranger. He had helped a stranger who was Bahamut, the Platinum Dragon. He apparently knows Kung Fu in my version of the world. Not content staying in the village, she sets out to become as strong as she can. So basically she's Goku from Dragon Ball Z, but short and green. So more of a like Piccolo Krillin fusion. I'm just trying to write the story based off of the excellent ideas I got from my friends Karasu and Bill. Karasu wrote about my goblin observing the chief, hitting a tree with a stick, prompting the goblin to emulate this as training and to keep finding new sticks as theirs break until they find an adventurer's staff and breaks it down. One for themselves and one for the chief, becoming a hero and seeking more training. Bill's story was about Chima observing a person doing a strange dance and begins to emulate them. The person finds the goblin and teaches them the dance, prompting their journey to become stronger. Also, dance is a metaphor that I've heard used for fighting by the Ale of the Wheel of Time series, which links back to my other D&D party, which is part of the Band of the Red Hand. Coincidence? I think not, but whatever. And also, just a quick bit of comedy here. You know, I said Bahamut was the master who taught, you know, the chieftain originally. You know, because I want Bahamut to be the stranger, just because it's funny to me. You know, having done more research into D&D, Bahamut is a prominent figure, and has been known from time to time to appear in the realms. Usually as an older man with, I believe it's 7 canaries. I forget the significance, but yeah. Making me think in every campaign, you know, Bahamut was around at least once just hanging out in the background. His DM never says it, or maybe they don't even realize it themselves. You know, Bahamut just casually does stuff. Teaches Kung Fu, drinks in the tavern, you know, offers friendly advice, etc., etc. But anyway, back to Chima. The name is also a combination of Chi-Chi and Bulma, again from the series Dragon Ball Z. It was a major series for me. Originally a half-elf, after talking with my friends, I realized Goblin seemed more fitting, and I do like it better this way. Though I'm kicking myself for not having made her a kobold. But that does open me up to having her rival be a kobold, Way of the Ascendant Dragon monk. Because kobolds emulate dragons, so it would make sense. But yeah, that's another plot line that may or may not come up ever again. They have plans for half-elf later. Specifically as my fighter/rogue, Redcoat. Sorry, just another random bit of information. Totally out of nowhere. She might be gay and romantically involved with Rosa Miffenbip. Rosie was Fedlims. Representation does matter, and also it just felt fitting to me. You know, it just came to me as a thought that I liked, and also possibly Urzmektok, you know, may have some interest in Darb as well. I don't know. Like, it's hard to say. Darb is probably ace like myself, but he may get involved with Sarah. You know, not super intimate, but, you know, definitely romantically involved, potentially. That was what I wanted originally, and then Javanus showed up, and I haven't addressed that in several sessions, so I don't know what the heck's going on with that, and yeah. Burgle also might potentially be ace and get involved with Greta. Again, Burgle is one of, you know, my characters. He's my insert. You know, the shy, awkward bard and the, you know, shy, awkward fighter half-orc. You know, those are just thoughts that landed with me personally. Not a big deal, I just wanted to share them. And then really quick, another potential timeline. An idea I had while writing this session. What if at some point we have a double agent in our midst? Now that'd be interesting. I'm not 100% sure where to reveal them, but you could justify it. I feel if you do the story justice. You know, maybe for year 1 or the entire campaign, I'm not sure. Would be interesting to see. Heck, the big bad guy could be a changeling and be active on campus this entire time. Or maybe someone just picking up where Mergaxer left off. Chima is a player character, so she is not going to betray the team, period. I want to test this campaign from start to finish as vanilla as I can to make sure it works, and I have some ideas for when I get to DM for people. I'm 90% sure I'm not going to have a spy in the campaign at this point. I may try and force a rivalry or two to come up because of ideas I have from my stories. You know, in short, a person becomes jealous of Darb and goes down the wrong path to try and one-up him, essentially. I have in mind a paladin going path of vengeance for this specifically. And that's it, everyone. You know, go home, have fun, stay safe, keep hydrated, get some sleep, and never forget, it's my world, but it's your story. I know the ending was totally rushed, but oh my god, I had to get all this out there. But yeah, so we have hit level 3, we got our subclasses, we've got our cool new monk friend, and we're gonna see how things go from here. And trust me, going into next session, session 8, oh my god, exit pursued by owlbear? By an owlbear? Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Whew, that was a hard session for me to get through. One of the characters almost died. Spoiler alert. It shook me. Like, I had to stop writing that for a while. And then come back to it after that. Ugh. It is hard just doing this, just to make sure it works for everybody. And to come up, with my own, like, thoughts and twists and ideas and such. But whatever, we'll get to that in the future. Again, everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you for, commenting and such and paying attention. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to at least get the stuff out there so it might help another budding DM like myself to come up with their own ideas and such. So until next time, everyone, have fun, stay safe, keep hydrated, and of course remember, it's my world, but it's your story. Until next time, peace.